So this is something like the game design document, or something like the early design documents for something that I'm working on. And it started after I played something like Dark Souls 2 or 3, and there's a new video game called Lords of the Fallen, also technically Dead Space 2 and 3. And I really like these sort of like harsh settings, and I started thinking about sort of why, and then I sort of like arrived at some conclusions that I feel are like very true in a sense. Why that in a sense Souls games are like cool and are cool, and I think that there's something amazing, and it is that that I believe that these statements are true, that life is cruel, and nothing provides true sustenance, and that the worst side of the material, also being born, ruins the very salvation of most. That in a sense we are living in a world that's beset by evil and something like destruction, and that life is sort of like very, very difficult, something like in a basic sense. So of course, to like feel better, I'll go talk to some friends, or I'll watch a movie, or do something fun, and you say distract myself from this, or do something constructive or productive or something. But that fundamentally, I believe that the world is like the Dark Souls video games. It's harsh, it's nihilistic, and we're all gonna die. And that's and then, for instance, something like too much importance of fame, vanity or shame, so ruins the fates. And in a sense, you think that some of the nicest thing that you just sort of like get, like if you wanted them, I suppose you just get like drunk every day and drive really fast in a car, and like do whatever you want. Some like the immediate, and something like if you do this, you can like feel better. That sort of like almost ruins people, right? And that's all right. And then after that, something like wealth and something like better fraternities and all that could be something like church, or something like a nice band, or something like a good group of people, or some people you associate with that are nice, and so on. That that's something like the more dependable things. For instance, if you have like $100,000, that isn't just gonna like go away in an afternoon for most people. And in a sense, you'd think that's dependable, but that also like fails people. And then the fourth statement here, that death is the master of all, I believe that's totally true. And that's in a sense what I think the Dark Souls video games are saying. These things that I hold to sort of like be true, I literally see reflected in the Dark Souls video games. And also something like Dead Space, especially 2 and 3, they're sort of like dystopian, ultra harsh. Death is just around the corner. No one is promised tomorrow, or something like that. Anything is gonna last, or they could fall apart and go crazy and lose their sanity and all kinds of stuff. That life is like very difficult, but then of course you do stuff to like feel better, like watch a movie or go for a walk or something like that, or stuff like that. But and then that achievements, the dust of the world, and even wisdom only matter so much that you can like start something like, for instance, gathering wisdom to yourself. But even that doesn't necessarily work that well. And there's something about these ultra harsh video games that I feel like we are born into a world where people die, and there's nihilism, and people's values and their lives and like everything they worked for and saved can like be attacked, and earthquakes and in a sense meteors could hit the earth and so on, and it doesn't happen every day. But that in a sense there's much peril, and in a sense terror, and something like difficult circumstances, and in a sense you could say even some like the psychology and better psychology of people could like fall apart, and in a sense much could go wrong for people in various ways, so much that in a sense we are in hell, and the Dark Souls video games capture that. And I really want to make something like that. And then these four statements that add to these like five statements that are something like why I like something like the Dark Souls video games. Contentment is never easy to locate. It's like it eludes most people, even if you know you should be content and so on. It doesn't mean it's easy to be content. And blood and power solve too much, and something like violence. That someone like, if you disagree with somebody, you could be nice to them, you could try and change the world, you could also just go and like punch them. And that sort of makes sense, and it's sort of an answer. It's just not the best answer for that many people, perhaps, and you could be thrown into jail, and it could make things even worse. But somehow, when nations start going to war or attacking other countries and so on, that in a sense violence seems like a sensible answer in certain ways, but ultimately it's also something that causes a ton of trouble, and perhaps destabilizes the world. but that feeling that someone like the stuff like violence and power aren't that far away from what people could see as the answer, and that might take over and in a sense ruin entire countries and like governments and how people treat each other and how government works. And there's a ton of stuff that could go wrong. And then after that, just something like laziness is something that could, like, get to most people and ruin lives. And then last, that deception is sweeter than honey, and in a sense it's rewarding, or you can get stuff from lying, and it in a sense messes with people or gets you what you want, and in a sense establishes something like your power or reputation at the expense of others, and something like that at the cost of lying. And it's somehow, I feel like, Dark Souls capture. And this you would say that in Russia they say everything is shit, life is shit, that we exist is shit, so like everything is shit. But I'm going first, like everything is horrible. Everything is horrible. There's like death and nihilism, and people fall apart or go mad, or in a sense evil on the inside, and life is truly, truly cursed around us, and the fundamental perhaps world, all of the world we live in. But then of course I do things to feel better. I watch a movie and I like deal with it and get on with my life, and I go visit my friends, or in a sense try and like make something of myself, as I'm like, so I don't sit around thinking about this stuff. But when I played Lords of the Fallen and Dark Souls 2 and 3, I literally felt like this is the way the world is, and some people should make like a video game about this, and like how everything works, and that we're like truly living in a messed up world, and something like nihilism and some like cursed realities, and that we're all gonna die, and some like almost demoniacs, or something like almost persecuting us and tearing our lives apart. There's not that much we can do about it. And that's what I feel that these Dark Souls video games capture, and Dead Space video games captures, and Lords of the Fallen that I'm a fan of now. I think what else? There's also Wu Chang, the sort of like a recent sort of like Dark Souls issue, the video game, and there are Bloodborne and like stuff like that, and these really, really, really difficult video games that I also think are something like phenomenal, and because they're so amazing and they really speak to me, and something like there's people are literally talking about how the world works and the kind of trouble and in a sense destruction that people are caught in, that I really feel like talking about this and turning this into art. So that's sort of why I want to make this sort of like tribute to Lords of the Fallen. That's sort of like a video game from 2023 by Hexworks in Poland, like sequel to something that was also called Lords of the Fallen or something. It's a sequel to something they made like 10 years ago from 2023, I think. Totally amazing stuff. Until somebody looked at, this is the way everything works. This is how the world is, and the trouble in a sense. And it's this almost desolation that we are caught in. And I think video games like that are amazing, and that's sort of like why I want to make something like that. And I get very excited, and I really want to try and like make something like that if we could. And that's all like that. And this is all like my first, like, this is my game design document, and like what my goals are and why I'm even doing this, and in a sense the start of the project. And I hope to like finish this, and that's all of that. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Bye.